Thank you. So, and now please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, Sunita Kannan, Global AI Sales and Strategy Lead at Microsoft and Azure Quantum Ambassador. With her extensive experience managing and delivering advanced analytics and artificial intelligence solutions for some of the largest Fortune 500 companies, Sunita is a true expert in her field. Prior to joining Microsoft, Sunita led the space of data, analytics, and AI across a number of leading consulting firms, and some of her academic accolades include being a PhD quantum physicist student at the University of Colorado Boulder, and she holds an MBA from UCLA, Anderson School of Management, as well as a Master's of Science in Quantum Physics from the University of Colorado. My discussion with Sunita today will focus on the future of work, AI agents, and she will be sharing her unique insights on this topic with us. And please join me in giving Sunita a warm virtual welcome. Welcome, Sunita, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I hope your flight from Singapore has been all right.
It was good.
So tiring. Excellent. So Sunita, if I may start, I have a few things I wanted to get your insights and understand your expert opinion. So one of the things that we are always asked is, for example, ChatGPT has been a revolution since its beta release to the public. I remember in November or December of 2022. And very quickly, it reached 1 million users after just 5 days. So how would you put this into perspective? Is this just an isolated event or part of a bigger trend on AI tools moving forward?
Great question, Pablo. I have to say that one of the things that really makes OpenAI work well, and I think people love it, is the fact that anyone can use it. Like I feel like before, when we used to talk about AI, we used to have people thinking, do I need to be a data scientist to be able to do this? Do I need to know coding and programming to be able to do this? And we have a huge skills shortage right now, right? And that's a given. So people do not come in with a computer science background, do not come in with an extensive coding and programming background. It's even hard to find SQL coders these days, right? So how do you actually get people to play with AI or they're comfortable with the language that they know, which is English, or any other language that they're familiar with? How do you get them to start using something and appreciate AI? I think that's where OpenAI has really struck the chord with many people. Now they can go into something like a ChatGPT and type in whatever they want. Like the other day, I was actually typing in something as stupid as, I'm really bored, entertain me. And ChatGPT would come back and say, these are different forms of entertainment. Like, you can watch a movie or you can do this. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. It's a very interactive, for sure. It's a very interactive way of playing around with AI, but it's very easy for people to use. I can give it to a child and a child will be able to take it and do whatever they want with it. I can give it to an adult who has no idea about AI or data science, and they can start playing with it. And I think that's what the biggest area that OpenAI has opened up for people, is that people now can go in with all skill levels and get acquainted with the magic of AI.
That's amazing. It's great to be living in this moment in history. Yeah, all these possibilities. Yep. Now, with all these opportunities, at the same time, people have some questions or they have some fears. Let's say, some people have speculated that this is the end of many jobs. So machines against humans, to put it bluntly. What do these changes really mean for employees and how we can prepare for this new era of AI tools?
I really liked what you said before, Pablo, which was you don't have to be afraid of machines taking over your jobs. You have to be afraid of humans who know how to handle the machines taking over your jobs. And I think that is the key difference here, is that, it's not about an AI taking over your job. It's about the people who are able to adapt to this new age of AI. And how do they actually, upskill themselves regularly? You need to be afraid of those people. And it's easier to obviously be that kind of person. I think number one, appreciation for the fact that the world is changing, accepting the change. Number two, the fact that, there are many things out there that can actually help with upskilling someone. things like, certifications. I know I can speak, obviously I'm speaking for Microsoft here. We have a load of number of certifications out there that people can get trained on. It starts from something as basic as what is AI, to all the way to, how do you use AI in a day-to-day scenario, not only obviously for an OpenAI perspective, but for machine learning, for other cognitive services that we have, the entire works, how AI comes together for your personal use and also for your company. So I think that's the other thing, just making yourself acquainted with what's going on out there, getting your hands dirty, getting into the tool and actually playing around with it really helps you appreciate what all you can do with it. So to your point, you showed many examples earlier. I would encourage people to actually go into something like OpenAI themselves and play around with it similar to what you did. You start to understand what all can be done then. So I think that's a really important thing. The other thing is, ask questions, right? If you don't know something, ask questions, and people are there to help. There are many sites, there are many, GitHub cookbooks and, playgrounds. I know that, for example, within Azure OpenAI, which is OpenAI on the Azure cloud that Microsoft has now partnered with OpenAI to do, we actually have a playground open. So once you get access to it, you can actually go into it and play around with things. So a lot of our, customers, a lot of, employees as well within Microsoft, they're not going into the playground and seeing what can be done, right? So they actually feed in a whole load of text inside it, and they say, can you summarize this for me? And OpenAI basically provides an entire summary of that thing. And then they're like, okay, this is going to be useful for me to do. So this is the thing, like actually thinking out of the box and thinking what is possible for my company and for my particular job to be able to make it easier for me, to make it easier for my customers. What do I need? And I think the main thing is start with your pain points. A lot of people force feed AI into things without knowing what they want to use AI for. So I would say really understand what your pain points are. Like, what do you want to make better? If you had a magic wand, what would you want to wish? And then see what parts of AI can actually help you with those pain points. And I think that is the most important thing. A lot of people right now are not thinking about that. They're mostly thinking about, oh my God, am I going to lose my job to an AI? Instead of which you can start thinking about, what are the things that AI can actually come in and help me with? And where does a human come into the loop of an end-to-end solution to say that right now, this is where I would play a bigger part. And humans are really going to be the most useful in the business aspects. You don't need to do mundane day-to-day, repetitive jobs anymore. Handle the escalations, handle the exceptions, and then think about what else can really help make the business better. And I think that's the thinking part is where the humans are going to be mostly valued for their job at this point, and as well as the management part of things, right? So your business. The human knows their business. They know what has worked and what is not going to work. They know how to make something more innovative in their business. So I think use your efforts there as a human being.
Yeah, but by the way, this reminds me of something I read a few days back. One of the engineers at Tesla, the one responsible for, or one of the ones in the team responsible for the autonomous driving of Tesla, he confessed that nowadays, 2023, around 80% of his software code is done by this GitHub Copilot. Yeah, that it's a tool, an AI tool for software developers. So 80% of what he codes is done by the AI assisting him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is amazing. And do you think that this can be? I mean, because my next question, and somehow you already answered it. So maybe I ask you please to give examples or to expand it. So how can people? Do I have to be a software developer to use these tools, or I can work in any part of the company and still have some benefits from these tools? What do you think?
From OpenAI itself, I would say you can be from any part of the business and use OpenAI for sure. Actually, I want to say that one of the key principles that Azure AI is built on within Microsoft is it is available for all skill levels. And so it's not just for OpenAI, which we know is something that anyone can use, but even for things like machine learning within AI. One of the things that we have is a drag and drop feature Another thing that we have is an auto ML feature. Another thing that we have is the integration to, notebooks such as R and Jupyter and Python and everything. So you don't need to be a complete data scientist for the first two. If you are a veteran data scientist, by all means, go ahead and use the notebooks. But if you don't know how to code or program, use the drag and drop feature or use the auto ML feature. That's totally fine. And that's what it's there for, so that you don't need to know how to program and code. So that's just the machine learning portion within AI, within Microsoft. That itself is available for all skill levels. And now when we have OpenAI, as I said, people are actually using it. So there are obviously, lots of SQL queries that we can do within Microsoft and outside with our customers. People are actually using natural language like English to say, this is the table. Now, can you convert this to a SQL query for me? And would actually come back and convert it to a SQL query as a response. So imagine now that you have someone in your team who does not know how to do a SQL query, but they want to be able to find something within their own data. How do they do that? Now, OpenAI has now opened that complete platform for you to be able to do that. So you can use the language that you're most familiar with. In this case, it was English, and just say, this is in full sentences, blah, blah, blah. Can you create a SQL query? It would bring back a response for you. You take that and you put that into your SQL query, and it would give all the answers that you need. Another example is, I think similar to the one that you showed earlier with the CAGR, a lot of people actually are using it to say, this is my entire balance sheet, and just copy the entire balance sheet and paste it into OpenAI and say, now can you find out what was my total earnings in 2019? And would actually come back with the entire amount right there. Your complete earnings in 2019 was blah, and it's done the entire calculation. So it's not difficult at all for you to now know how to do all these things. And things like, I want to be able to search through 10 different documents for this one particular thing. How do you get OpenAI to do that? Now you just feed in all your 10 documents into OpenAI and say, can you find this thing? And it would actually come back with a response for you. So it's very powerful when you know how to do it. A lot of our customers are actually using OpenAI for call center analytics. So in fact, how do you actually imagine a customer who's complaining is calling in, and that person is just very stressed out and has so many things to say. How do you actually get to hear all those things and process all those things and read it in a text format because it's transcribed, and find out what the actual issue is? So the first point that usually happens is a bot agent who takes on that particular call. Then when it's time for an escalation, that bot agent passes it over to a human agent. Now imagine I'm the human agent and I've just received this call from the bot saying, this is the kind of customer, blah, 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 and there's an entire text there. I don't have time to read all that when someone is screaming in my ear saying, your product is terrible or your service is awful. I need to find out what the issue was. So all I need to do now is to tell OpenAI, can you summarize this issue for me? And it would actually give one sentence back to say that this particular customer is calling in because they were in a car accident and their insurance does not actually cover. So how can you help? And that's it. And that was my answer. And finding out what I need to know to be able to help this person is right there in that one sentence. I don't need to read through 5 different paragraphs. Many different things that you can do. So to answer your question, I would say you don't need to have a data science background. You don't need to be a PhD in computer science to now start accessing AI.
No, nor quantum like yourself, right? Not quantum computing.
No, definitely not quantum.
Okay, very good. Now let me play a little bit of devil's advocate, or taking into in another direction. What are some of the challenges? Because everything that we discussed so far, I mean, it's amazing and looks very promising, but I'm sure that there are challenges, no? So what are some of the challenges that you see ahead, and what technology leaders like Microsoft are doing to facilitate adoption?
Yeah, good question. So one of the biggest limitations that we have in AI overall is what things can go wrong with it, right? So if left without any monitoring of how it's being implemented, it can go really wrong, and it can actually start to harm, the intent of the whole thing. So for instance, I think there was a recent post, if somebody asked a ChatGPT, will you harm me? I think the response is, I will harm you. If you harm me, I'll harm you. So I think that kind of thing, it was good in good humor there, obviously. But I think there are many bad intentions that have happened in the past, just with AI alone, right? So, for example, bias creeping in. I think there was an incident before where, if you use AI for hiring purposes or recruitment purposes, and they actually come back and say, uh, I don't want to put any bias into the data itself. And then what happens is I've actually seen in resumes that have been parsed, you take out the field called male and female, that's fine. You remove that because you don't want gender biases. But there was another area where you had to put hobbies down. And within that hobbies, one of the selection criteria was women's netball. So obviously, when someone selects women's netball, chances are that they are a woman is pretty high. So, their bias has basically creeped in. So you don't want that kind of thing happening either, right? So you don't want biases creeping in of any kind. The other thing which can go wrong is it's not being inclusive towards everyone. So I think that is an intent for using AI as well for many companies out there. So many companies, for example, an education company was actually in charge of textbooks. And one of the things they wanted to do was to be able to use AI to make it inclusive to everyone. So they decided to convert all their textbooks into audiobooks because they realized a lot of people who can't read were actually not getting the right kind of education. So they used AI for that. So if they had not done that, obviously, a lot of things would have been completely biased in the way that they were handling things. There are lots of bad things that have happened, right? So if in case of healthcare companies, if in the case of autonomous vehicles, we've seen that that's obviously a life and death situation if not handled properly. Back to your question on the solution, I think the biggest area of work that we are doing in handling all of this is responsible AI. And it's really, really important to make sure that anything in AI, regardless of whether it's OpenAI or any of the known AI from before, like machine learning or anything else, they're all surrounded by, they're all embedding responsible AI practices. So in Microsoft, we have 6 principles of responsible AI, everything from fairness, inclusiveness, accountability, explainability. How do you actually make things transparent to your own organization as well to certain customers outside? Because a lot of people have started questioning now. So is my data going to be used for something incorrect? Am I going to be negatively impacted because of this AI solution in place? And all of these things require answers to be ready. The other thing that you need to do is to make sure that if a person leaves an organization, that the AI that they were accountable for is now transparent to the next person who's going to own it. In case something bad were to happen, there needs to be someone always on point to be able to go in and correct that particular AI solution. So responsible AI, hands down, is the biggest thing that Microsoft is investing a lot of time, energy, and money into. So I think even with OpenAI now, it's very recent in Microsoft, Azure OpenAI. The thing is, we have a lot of intrinsic responsible AI embedded within Azure OpenAI. So things like content moderation. How do you actually make sure that the content is safe and secure and is not going into bad hands, if you will? So all of those things, I think, is where everyone needs to invest a lot more time and energy to do with anything in AI.
That's great to know, Sunita, and very, very fascinating answers so far. Now, you mentioned a few applications, and of course, I mean, you're from Microsoft, and you will of course mention some of those things. But in general, I'm asking in general, what are the most fascinating AI tools available and how they're being used today? So from all the things you've seen so far, of course, mainly Microsoft, but in general, what tools do you think are the most promising, fascinating, they have the most potential for the future?
Yeah. Um, obviously, I'm going to name a few from Microsoft to start off with.
Course, yeah.
I would say anything to do with machine learning. Machine learning is because of everything happening with OpenAI right now. I would say that machine learning seems to be like this ignored child, but it's actually a very important part of AI to be able to talk about predictive analytics and stuff, right? So that's definitely a super important thing. The other thing that I would say, obviously, is OpenAI. Within OpenAI, you have a few things. So ChatGPT is great for conversational purposes. Again, if you want to have a conversation with a human-like bot agent, ChatGPT is great for that. DALL-E is amazing as well. So DALL-E is beautiful to be able to generate new images. I've actually heard about a few clients wanting to use it for art therapy and so on. So it's really fascinating, the kind of things that people want to do with it. The other one I've seen emerging time and again, and I've actually played around with it myself as well, is Grammarly. So Grammarly has an amazing, AI tool as well. I think a lot of appreciation for the work that's being done there. So amazing stuff. Obviously, things like BioGPT and everything. If it's very new, but I think the intent is beautiful for there as well. So I would say these ones, and I really liked the music that you created with your AI tool, by the way. So that's definitely one that I want to be taking a look at later as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, by the way, the name is Ava. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's AIVA.
Yeah, I noted it down. I'm definitely going to take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a roller coaster. What do you think we should expect for the next 10 years in terms of advancements and innovation? I mean, the acceleration of tools and technology is exponential. But for the next 10 years, what we should expect in this field?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot that you can do with AI, as you can see, right? I mean, the kind of things that are happening are just really out of box solutions. Where I and the rest of the leaders at Microsoft, we're investing a lot of time is to make AI actually embedded into applications. So, embedding AI into all the applications that are being used by the company. So proprietary applications, as well as for, third-party applications. How do we actually embed AI into as many things as possible? So as you can tell, Bing has now got ChatGPT, right? Teams has got now ChatGPT. And we are also embedding it into other applications. So, things like PowerPoint and stuff are already having a lot of AI within it. So for example, the designer feature within PowerPoint already was an AI-enabled feature. We also have Coach within PowerPoint, which is also an AI-enabled feature. So these things are already there. How do we embed now new OpenAI and ChatGPT functions into all applications as well? I think this is where most companies should start thinking about things, because AI by itself makes no sense unless you can actually embed it into applications to make sure that things are end-to-end for anyone who's using the application. So imagine that, I give you an OpenAI. It's really great to play around with it. Now, what do I do with it, right? So I can either do all those things that I mentioned, like, call center analytics, like summarization things. But at the same time, I also want to be able to bring it into other applications that we are using, like, as I said, Teams and Bing and others, to say that now this particular application has got all the values in it, not just from a data perspective, but also from an AI perspective in the background. So everything is now in one place. And I think that's where it's going to get really interesting to see how to embed and when to embed and which AI applications to embed into which proprietary applications of the organization. And I think that's what is going to be the next step for any organization. I think AI innovations will keep happening. It's about how do you make it accessible to people.
So in other words, what you're saying, it will be like seamless, it will be embedded
Correct.
seamlessly. So we will be using Microsoft applications like we do every day, and the AI power will be in the background assisting us.
Absolutely. The integrated experience is going to be the game changer.
Excellent. So, I mean, the next question seems a bit redundant, but still, I would like to ask it because it's very strategic. Yeah. So we know that Microsoft has invested around 10 billion in OpenAI recently, And what does this mean for the ecosystem? Or I mean, if you can talk more on the strategic positioning of the company buying this, I mean, not buying the company, but investing in the company.
Yeah, I think one of the, as you know, the mission of Microsoft is to be basically empowering everyone on this planet, right? So I think, and I made it really succinct, but I think the idea behind that is in line with, as I said, the Azure AI principle that we have, Microsoft AI principle that we have, which is make it accessible to everyone, empower everyone to be able to use things. So now there are no limitations of, who uses what. The other thing is that, the idea of OpenAI to be able to actually be another, next step forward in AI and actually be a game changer is obviously a given. But along with that, it's the fact that now anyone and everyone can use it and understand AI and start using AI. And I think that is the main thing. We have never actually locked people into Microsoft Cloud and any of the things that we do. So we have always said, if you wanted to use machine learning, you don't have to have your data all being in Azure. You can have it in other places as well, like on-prem or anywhere else. It doesn't need to be on the cloud. But at the same time, we also want to say that, if you want to use the machine learning part with that, go ahead and use it. It's in line with that for OpenAI as well. So now we're saying that Azure OpenAI means that everything that you could do with OpenAI itself is now on Azure. It's on your subscription. It's completely and entirely accessed only by you. So I think to a few questions in the chat, will that data be exposed to others? No, because there are role-based access controls in place. There is permissions and security and everything in place. So only the people who need access or needs to have access to that particular data or the outcome of that AI will have access to it. Outside, even your own department, if you want to, ensure that no one has access to that, you can set your permissions and you are back to that. So everything is secured within your own Azure subscription. And I think that is one of the biggest things why we have invested as well. So now people are, going to be able to ensure that privacy and security and everything is in place, and also be able to play around with the magic of OpenAI. So both worlds coming together really is what made the investment worth it.
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
speaking on behalf of Satya here, but yes.
Excellent. And yeah, we'll be touching on some of those audience questions in just a moment.
Yeah. Sure.
And coming back, something that you emphasized and mentioned, but maybe now concentrating on putting the focus on this. Yeah. You mentioned something that still is resonating with me: responsible AI, right? Something so important. So can you elaborate a little bit more on I mean, why responsible AI and how this can be accomplished?
Sure. Yeah. So responsible AI is so if I'm talking about the entire Microsoft AI now, right? So if I think about, for instance, how do you ensure that responsible practices are maintained when implementing AI? That's what responsible AI means. And one of the things I keep saying to everyone that I speak with on this topic, I say responsible AI is actually synonymous to AI in my world. So you cannot have an irresponsible AI implementation of AI, right? And this doesn't even make sense to me. So every single implementation in AI has to be done in a responsible manner, which means things like fairness, privacy, security, transparency is all maintained. It needs to be explainable. So really understanding what is in that black box now, and understanding who has access to what, but also understanding who's accountable if something were to go wrong. So if I take, for instance, Azure Machine Learning for a second again, one of the things that we have within our Azure Machine Learning suite of products is FairLearn. And FairLearn, basically what it does is it actually ensures that you don't have bias creeping in, whether it's in your data or your models, and actually ensures that everything is done in a fair and unbiased manner for machine learning. We also have things like differential privacy, which basically ensures how do you mask sensitive data while still carrying out the outcomes of AI as you wanted it to be done. So it'll not compromise compromise on the outcomes of AI just because you had to mask the information. So all of these things are just examples of where AI is there. Also in Azure OpenAI, now we have responsible AI features embedded, as I said, content moderation, which actually looks into what information is, what use cases are using, OpenAI. One of the other things that we have is, so Azure OpenAI actually went GA, general availability, about 2-3 weeks ago now. And it's actually something called a gated GA, which means that every person who's actually applying for access to Azure OpenAI has to fill out a form where they have to put down what is the use case or what is the intent of using OpenAI for the organization. So they need to fill out complete sentences about what is the idea of why they need it. And then we have a gating team that actually looks through all this information to see, is it in line with our responsible AI practices and principles? Is it going to harm anyone? And basic things like that they need to go and check. So if we find that there is not enough information on the use case, you would contact back to the applicant and say, can you provide more information, because this is not sufficient information to give you access. So this is a very important piece before someone actually even gets access to Azure OpenAI. And I think that this is what we need to, this is one of the first steps that we have within OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, for responsible AI practices. Otherwise, as I said, we have everything to do with, privacy, security. ChatGPT, if put in the wrong hands, because it is what you ask of it, if you now start asking it wrong questions, it'll actually start generating new responses which are incorrect. So ChatGPT needs to really be, kept a close eye on and made sure that it's not in the wrong hands. So that is another thing that we want to make sure of. Who has access to it, which subscriptions have access to it, and what are they planning to do with it? So these are other reasons why this is an important process for us.
Excellent. And now I think I'll if you agree, I would like to ask a few questions from our audience that are coming in, so we give them a chance to put their ideas forward. Yeah, the first one that I think you already mentioned, or probably you read it in the chat. It was regarding the security. I think you already covered that it's secured and can be moderated. That's fine. The second question that I have here from the audience, it says, on cloud versus on-premise AI chats, are there limitations to output information?
If I interpret the question a little bit, I think it's just cloud versus on-prem, AI right. On cloud versus AI on-prem.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so I would say that we have, for instance, for machine learning, we have ARC, and ARC actually enables you to do the basics of machine learning on-prem. There are no limitations there. It's just like doing it in the cloud. So nothing different there. If I talk about some of our other cognitive services right now, we have a bunch of cognitive services that we can do in containers on-prem. And it's not the entire suite of things that we can do in the cloud, but I would say about 80% of those are available to do on-prem. So, and is the output compromised for those? No, it's not compromised for those. It's exactly like in that case. But what I would say is that you don't have the full suite of things available on-prem like in the cloud. That's the only difference.
Very good. Thank you very much. And then the third question that I have, it says, after you have uploaded your balance sheet for OpenAI to analyze, if anyone else thereafter asks OpenAI for a summary of your company balance sheet, will OpenAI give it to them?
I'm going to answer that question by putting an Azure in the front. So I would say for Azure OpenAI, no. As long as I said, you keep your permissions and your role-based access control set in the right direction, that should not happen. So leakage of information and your data should stay within the network that you have created within your Azure subscription. I can't speak on behalf of OpenAI. I'm a Microsoft employee, so I can talk about Microsoft Azure OpenAI.
Okay, that's very good. Now, the fourth question I have is, the mission of OpenAI is to ensure that artificial intelligence benefits all of humanity. After investment of $10 billion from Microsoft in OpenAI, how can we be sure that will be true in the future and that is not going to be used just to overrule the competitors?
Okay. I think well, what I know about the partnership with OpenAI is that Microsoft is the only one with this partnership with OpenAI. So
Right.
I'm not machine learning to be able to predict the future. But I can talk about right now. We are the only ones partnering with OpenAI. As I said, the intent is purely because of our mission statement, Microsoft's mission statement, which is to be able to empower everyone on this planet, right? And that goes for AI as well. And yeah, I cannot talk about competitors in the future who want to go into OpenAI. Yeah.
No problem. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Now, I mean, in general, I mean, I've been having this question from many people that are, I mean, they think about their future in their jobs. So, what would you recommend for I mean, all employees that of course, they care about their future, about how to be prepared? Is this AI a threat or no? What is your advice for all of us, in terms of this AI revolution?
Yeah. Again, I would say, get your hands into the technology. And I think the more you get acquainted with it, the more you see not only the benefits of it, but also the limitations of it. And one of the other things I would say is that it's very hard for, a computer to come in and understand all the business aspects of your process. What has worked in the past, what's not worked in the past. You have that knowledge. So I would say leverage that part of the knowledge and stick to that because as you said, coding and stuff, if that person is already now giving all his codes or her codes to OpenAI or like AI in general to start doing, that's fine. But what is beyond coding? And I think this is where the interaction between people are going to be really important because ultimately, and I feel really bad saying this on a call that's being recorded, but ultimately, even when I talk and a bot agent answers me, I'm like, what? Give me a human being. I want to talk to a human being. So I think that ultimately every person desires to, have that conversation with another person. So what I would say is take on escalations like that, right? Take it on as you will be there to handle the more complex scenarios or the bigger escalations from your customers. Or you'll be there to actually think about what is the next big thing that will really benefit my company. I know it for 16 years. I know it for 20 years. I've been in this company for so long. What can we do next? And I think that whole brainstorming about where the business has to go next is what people are going to start having to think about now. And AI can be an enabler to all of this to make your life easier, but it's not going to do that for you. You need to do that yourselves.
That's a great answer, and we'll be wrapping up now. So thank you, Sunita, very much for providing us with thought-provoking insights and challenging us to think about the ways in which AI is shaping the workplace. I'd also like to thank the audience for your engagement and for your thoughtful questions during the Q&A session. And your active participation and curiosity have made this a great learning experience. Have a great day and stay tuned for all Innovation Week talks, activities, training, POCs, and demos coming up. Thank you very much.